Hello everyone, thank you so much for clicking on today's video and welcome to my channel. In today's story, OP reaches out to Reddit because she finds herself in a very unique situation. Honestly, her circumstances are really heartbreaking, but it does end on a semi-positive note, so I do hope that you stay tuned for the update to find out. If you do like the story, I would really appreciate it that you could leave a thumbs up. And before we move on to the story, I just wanted to take a second and thank all of my subscribers. Thank you so much, you guys are the things that keep me going. And for those that are new, if you do like my content and you would like to support me, I would really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button. Anyways, thank you so much for your time and on to the story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to name my child after my late husband? Me, a 31-year-old female, and my current husband, a 35-year-old male, recently found out that we were expecting twin boys, and my first husband's mother is livid that we aren't naming one of them after her son. A little background. My first husband, let's call him Michael, and I were college sweethearts. We got married not long after graduation, and I thought that I would be with him for the rest of my life. Unfortunately, we were only married for a couple of months before Michael passed away suddenly. It was one of the worst times in my life, and I never thought that I would ever fall in love again, much less get married again and have a family. I remained very close to Michael's mom, my mother-in-law, and she was very supportive when I eventually started dating again. Not long after, I met my current husband, let's call him John, and I took him to her house so that they could meet. She was so excited to meet him, and I remember going to the bathroom and crying tears of relief that she wasn't angry at me for moving on. When John and I got married, she was so happy for me, and on my wedding day, she took me aside and told me that she knew Michael was happy for me too. It meant so much to me to hear her say that. Earlier this year, John and I found out that we were pregnant. At first, mother-in-law was ecstatic, making jokes about being a quote-unquote bonus grandma, and asking to help plan the gender reveal party and baby shower. But then when the subject of names came up, she was shocked that we weren't planning to name the baby after Michael. I explained to her that if it was a boy, we were going to name him after John's father. I could tell that she wasn't happy, but she seemed to accept it. Things took a turn for the worst after my 20-week ultrasound, when we found out that I was carrying twin boys. When I told her the news, she flat out told me that I had to name one of the babies after Michael, or she would never forgive me. When I told her that we weren't going to do that, she absolutely flipped, saying that I was betraying the memory of her son. I tried to make her understand that as much as I love and miss Michael, that chapter of my life is over, and I feel like it's disrespectful to John to insist on naming one of his children after another man. At first, John said that he would be fine with it, especially if it was what I wanted, but eventually he admitted that the idea made him uncomfortable. I never want to make my mother-in-law think that I've forgotten Michael or that he wasn't important to me, but I don't want to name one of my children after him either. And honestly, I don't think he would have wanted me to. There are better ways of remembering him than giving his name to a child that will never have any real connection to him. I tried explaining this to mother-in-law, but she just wouldn't hear it. She told me that she would never speak to me again if I didn't name one of the babies after her son. She's been a really important part of my life, and I don't want to lose her, but at the same time, I feel like she's giving me an unfair ultimatum. So, am I the a-hole? The overwhelming verdict was not the a-hole, and Opie says, "Wow, I was blown away by all of the feedback and support. We're hosting my in-laws, John's parents, so I can only add a short update for now, but I promise to leave a longer one when they go home in a couple of days. For now, I just want to address a few things I saw in the comments. A lot of you want clarifications as to how long Michael has been gone. It will be 10 years this October. And no, Michael is not his real name. Any names that I've included in the post have been changed to protect anonymity. A lot of you also wondered why I'm still close with his mother after so long. I probably should have included this in the original post for context, but there are a couple of reasons for this. Michael was an only child, and his father was never in the picture, and she has virtually no other family member left, besides a handful of cousins who live across the country. Over the years, she's been a steadfast supporter, always the first to encourage me to live my life and be happy. Funnily enough, I might not have met John if it wasn't for her. A friend of mine had set me up with him on a blind date, and I almost backed out. The only reason that I didn't was because my ex-mother-in-law convinced me to go. Honestly, she's the last person that I ever would have expected this from, which is why I found it so hard to deal with. A lot of you have said that this is probably her being forced to finally deal with a lot of unprocessed grief, and I think that that's probably true. I think that at some point I stopped thinking of her as my mother-in-law and started thinking of her as a friend. I thought that she'd come to think of me in the same way, but now I'm realizing that at least a part of her still sees me as Michael's wife. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to find a way to work it out, but I'm prepared to let her go if it comes to that, even though it will make me terribly sad. To those of you that said that I should start putting some boundaries up with her, you're probably right. I honestly thought all of the bonus grandma jokes were harmless at first, but now I have started to think otherwise. I don't want to make any rash decisions yet, at least until we've both had a chance to calm down. But as things stand now, she has a lot of work to do in the way of regaining my trust. As to where I stand on the name issue, I'm not going to name either of my children after Michael. For those of you who are worried I might cave on the issue, don't be. It was never an option. I briefly considered doing something with a middle name, but ultimately decided against it. I don't want to burden either of my children by naming them after a man they will never have any connection to. As to how we honor Michael's memory, every year John and I go visit his grave on his birthday. It was actually John who started the tradition the year we got engaged, and we haven't missed a year since. Maybe someday when they're old enough, we'll take the boys. I don't know how exactly, but I'm sure that I'll find a way to explain to them who Michael was and what he meant to me. For those of you who asked if this was having a negative impact on my marriage, the answer is no. John has been my rock throughout the entire pregnancy, and his only concern during this ordeal has been my emotional well-being. I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that if I wanted to name one of these babies after Michael, that he would let me and never say a word about it, no matter how much it hurt him. Which makes me even more determined not to cave on the issue because I refuse to pay his selflessness with selfishness. As to where things stand with my ex-mother-in-law and I, my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, is good friends with her. They teach together at the same school. So right now, she's acting as a sort of go-between. She says that she thinks ex-mother-in-law is having a long overdue emotional breakdown. We both agree that she has avoided fully processing her grief, and now it's all coming to a boiling point. She's pushing hard to get her to see a therapist, and I'm hopeful that we can salvage at least some of our relationship. But if not, I'll find a way to live with it. And finally, to the handful of commenters who insinuated that I'm still in love with Michael and that I'm not being fair to John, let me just say that until you've been in my shoes, you won't understand. Michael and I were very young when we got married. I loved him very much and he will always have a place in my heart. But John is absolutely the love of my life. It took me years of therapy, but I don't feel guilty about it anymore. Thank you all so much for commenting and leaving your thoughts. It's helped me so much to process things and sort out my emotions. Planning to see ex-mother-in-law later this week after current in-laws leave, and I'll be back with an update as soon as possible. I meant to do this sooner, but it has been a wild month. As it turns out, caring two human beings inside of you takes a bit of a toll, and lately I've been feeling it. As of yesterday, I'm at 32 weeks, which means that we're officially out of the danger zone if the boys decide to come early, but hopefully they'll stay where they are for a little while longer. John and I were advised by a friend that we should give them names that mean something to us as a couple, so we decided to name them after our favorite Tom Hanks characters, as it was our mutual love of the actor that we first bonded over. For a hint, neither of them will be named Forrest. One of them will be named after a character who starred alongside Meg Ryan. Since I made this post, it's come to light that ex-mother-in-law has a serious problem with alcohol. I never realized this before, because apparently she was very good at hiding it. Also, I've been told that while she has been nothing but supportive and kind to my face, she has actually made some very unkind comments about me and John behind our backs. She's even told some people that I cheated on Michael, her son, with John, even though I didn't even meet him until several years after Michael died. So we decided to go no contact 2 weeks ago, and it makes me very sad because Michael adored his mother and it would break his heart to see her like this. Because as awful as she has been to me lately, I know that it's just because she's in pain. Still, I know that he would understand why I've decided to cut her out of my life. I truly hope that one day she'll heal and we can find a way to be friends again. So guys, what did you think about this? Please let me know in the comments down below. I personally feel really bad for OP. And I also kind of feel bad for the mother. Like, I cannot imagine what both of them have gone through. I'm so happy that OP was able to process her grief and get to a stage in her life where she's able to move on and have a wonderful future with her kids and John. Unfortunately, I feel so bad for the mother because I really don't think that the mother, or ex-mother-in-law, whatever you want to call her, I really don't think that she really has any support system. And I have to agree with OP and the sister-in-law. I don't think that the ex-mother-in-law has really processed her grief. But like, how can you possibly even begin to process such grief? Like, how do you move on? I don't know. But I think at the very least, you might be able to live with the grief and in the process not harm yourself and others. And I don't think the mother-in-law had really reached that stage, especially given her problem with alcohol and the fact that she was pretty much being two-faced with OP. Anyways, what did you guys think? Please let me know in the comments down below. I'm really interested to hear your takes. If you did like the story, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a thumbs up. And please subscribe if you'd like to hear more stories from Reddit with updates.